This is 10 travel tips when you're traveling in Israel. Number one, always ask for a beer sample. Now, as someone who lives in the UK, when my friend told me to get a beer sample when I ordered a beer, I was absolutely shocked. I was like, "What? You can get samples of beer?" And I don't know about what the situation is in your country, but in this country, nobody ever asks for a sample of beer ever. So I was shocked when he said, "Yeah, just ask for a sample of beer," and I did, and they give you a sample. They give you usually like in a shot sized glass. They give you a little bit of the beer. You can try it, and it's a great way to save money because one thing you will learn later in the video is Israel is not cheap. So when you don't want to spend like £6 on a beer and not like it. So really good thing about Israel is you can actually sample the beer before you try it. The good thing is though that Israel is a country with really good beer. Like Gold Star is probably one of the best beers I've had. Um, I think that's what it's called. At least I think it's called Gold Star. But yeah, I would say when you're in Israel, even though the beer is usually really good, always just get a sample because one, I mean, it's extra free beer, of course, and two, it just saves you money because buying beer in Israel is expensive, so it's a great way to not waste your money. Number two, if you're on a budget, do not order fish at restaurants. Now, usually at restaurants, there are a lot of places where you can sort of choose the meat or fish you can have with like that. There'll be like a certain recipe, and then you can choose like beef, chicken, or fish or whatever. They do have pork at some places. I know you think, oh, in Israel they don't have pork. Yeah, well, in Tel Aviv in particular because it's fairly secular. There are some places that do pork. It's not very common, but usually, like, say if it's like a Asian restaurant or something, they might do pork. But yeah, pork is not a very common thing, obviously, for religious reasons. The thing is, one thing I noticed on every menu, fish is drastically more expensive than meat. I don't even know why, because Israel is on the Mediterranean Sea, which I'm sure has abundance of fish. But for whatever reason, again, if you know, please tell me. But fish is really expensive, so if you're on a budget, I'll just stick to chicken and beef. Personally, I didn't order any fish when I was in Israel because I'm not a massive fish lover anyway. So when I saw that fish is like 10 shekels, maybe even 20 shekels more, I just sort of avoided it for the whole trip. But if you're not worried about money and money's not a problem, and you do like fish, then I'll say go ahead. But just to be warned, fish is dramatically more expensive. Number three, get a RAV-CAV card. Now, in the buses in Israel, you can get like you can pay with cash, but one thing you'll find is that it starts to get annoying really quickly, having to pay with cash every time you take like a single fare. So one thing I recommend is getting a RAV-CAV card and just topping it up. Usually, like you get a lot for what if you top up. I don't know how much you top up. Say if you top up 100 shekels, I think. Yeah, that's a reasonable amount of money. If you top up like 100 shekels, that's probably gonna last you a long, very long time, maybe even a week. So yeah, I'll just recommend getting the RAV-CAV card because all you have to do, you have to top it up, and then you just tap it, and then you get the charge of your bus fare, and it's really quick, really easy. It saves the hassle of having to pay usually because bus fares aren't that expensive. You might have to pay with coins, and yeah, obviously coins are always annoying. But even so, if you for whatever reason you're not in Israel for that long, or you don't really want to get a RAV-CAV card, you can pay in cash, and they are actually pretty quick when they really are really quick to give you your change and and you get like a paper ticket usually, although they never check it, so whatever, it's not big of a deal. But yeah, I'll recommend though getting a RAV-CAV card just for convenience and to save money. Four, this may sound like oh duh, obviously, but eat the local food. Well, the main reason I say this is because especially Tel Aviv in particular is very expensive if you want to go and eat out. Obviously, Tel Aviv is it's got a lot of very very varied cuisine. You can pretty much find almost any cuisine like Mexican, Asian, Italian. A lot of Italian restaurants in Tel Aviv for whatever reason, but and also traditional Israeli food. But one thing is try and eat the traditional food because it's a lot cheaper. Like you can get like a big bowl of hummus and pizza, maybe like 20 shekels, 20 to 25 shekels, and that's very, very reasonable price. It's very filling. To get like hummus and pizza, it's a very filling dish. When I was in Mahana Yehuda market in Jerusalem, I got like a massive bag of pizzas for like 5 shekels, and that lasted me like the whole trip. So like, again, if you go to markets, just buy the local food. you'll be surprised how much cheaper it is if you go to a convenience store or if you eat out at like foreign food restaurants like Italian or Japanese or whatever. Number five, get some freshly squeezed juice. Now in Israel, if you watch my previous video, you'll know there are lots of freshly squeezed juice stalls everywhere, especially in markets and places like that. And they are very good. It's a very unique thing. Like I've never seen anything like that before. So it's a great thing just to go get some freshly squeezed juice. It's also fun to watch them do it in front of you. They cut the fruit obviously, and then they put it in the machine and squeeze it down. It's pretty interesting to just watch them do it too, and it's pretty cheap. It's like usually about 5 shekels, maybe 10, if it's a more expensive place. And there's lots of fruit, different fruit you can get. You can get like orange, passion fruit, whatever. Lots of different options for juice you can get. And again, even in Carmel Market, there was this place that did like a smoothie where it's just like a massive blend of all these different fruits. It was a bit more expensive for me because I got the large one, and like it was pretty good. So if you're in Israel, definitely get the freshly squeezed juice. Number six, walk through the markets. Now, as I said previously, the markets is a great place to get cheap food. Like I got for lunch when I was in Carmel Market, I got a falafel pita, like falafel in a pita for like 7 shekels, which is really cheap. It's like one pound 50, and it was very filling, and it wasn't like the most fancy thing in the world, but it did the job. It was pretty good, and it's just a local thing to try. I went to 3 markets in Israel. I went to Jaffa Market, Carmel Market, and Mahane Yehuda Market. Now the first two are in Tel Aviv. The third one is in Jerusalem. Carmel Market is a really good place to go in Tel Aviv if you're looking for cheap souvenirs, cheap food. They've got everything there. It's also just the good thing about walking through markets is it's just a great way to suck in atmosphere. It's very atmospheric. Obviously, it's pretty closed in, so I wouldn't call it claustrophobic, but it's very sort of packed in. So it's a very interesting thing to just walk through, hear the sounds, smell the smells. Yeah, there are a lot of interesting smells going around. So yeah, it's just a great cultural experience just to walk through the markets. Mahane Yehuda is a bit more modern, so it's a bit more a bit more of an upscale market. But it's still a good market to go to. So yeah, walk through the markets is. I honestly give this tip in any country, but in Israel, I'd say definitely walk through the markets. Number seven, people watch at religious sites. Now, and obviously, Israel has an abundance of religious sites. In Jerusalem, in particular, you've got Western Wall, Holy Sepulchre, Temple of the Rock. You got lots of Dome of the Rock, I think it's called. But you got plenty of religious sites there to go to. If you're not religious like me, it's just interesting to go there and see people practicing their religion. Um, you know, in the Holy Sepulchre, there's a lot of people doing like their prayers because that's supposedly where Jesus is buried. So a lot of people, doing their prayers to Jesus or whatever they're doing. I'm probably being really disrespectful, but I just don't. I honestly, I'm just being honest. I didn't know what they were doing, but it's just interesting just to watch them. You might learn something. Um, I did. Like I didn't know that Jesus was buried there, and I found out. I was like, oh, well, now I know why all these people are kissing this thing and praying to it. And as well with Western Wall, like as someone who lives, in a Christian country in the UK, you don't really see that many Jews, so it's interesting just to see, Jews praying. It was a new thing for me. I hadn't seen it really before. So yeah, it's definitely very interesting to go to a religious site, and if you're not religious, just watch people doing what they do, and it's a very interesting and enriching experience. Number eight, if you're in Tel Aviv, walk down Rothschild Boulevard. Now this is like a big main street in Israel, and sorry, in Tel Aviv. There are actually like it's a street where there's like a pedestrian area in the middle of the street where you can walk down. And I think there are like maybe 5 or 6 streets like this in Tel Aviv, but the main one I went to was Rothschild. In my opinion, that's because it's the most well known and probably the best one. When you walk down, it's usually like there's some like scenery, like greenery on the side of you. It's also interesting just to see the shops and things on the side, and also when you're walking down the path in the middle of the street, there are a lot of like coffee kiosks on the side. Again, I'm not a big drinker of coffee, but even if you don't drink coffee, it's just interesting to see these little kiosks. They look very nice, so it's just interesting to go and see them. And if you do like coffee, I recommend going and sitting down and having a coffee. It's not that cheap, I don't think. So it's not a cheap activity to do, But I would say definitely if you're in Tel Aviv, go down Rothschild Boulevard, sit at a coffee kiosk and just watch and observe. Number 9, go to the beach. Now, when you think of Israel, the first thing that doesn't pop into your mind is beaches, but Tel Aviv has really, really nice beaches. Very underrated in terms of their beaches they have. They're very clean, the water's very clear, and it's generally just really beautiful. And yeah, the people are really nice too. You know, so if you're in Tel Aviv in particular, there's no beaches in Jerusalem because it's obviously inland. But if you're in Tel Aviv, go to the beach, even if it's just for one day, just to see it, because it's just a really nice beach. Yeah, when you think of beaches, you might think of Spain or places like that if you want to go to the beach. But no, Tel Aviv, very good beaches. Again, if you're a sort of person that likes beach holidays, I don't, then maybe add Tel Aviv to your considerations. Now, number 10, the final tip: be prepared for tight security. Now, I don't really want to go into detail why there is a lot of security in this country. If you've read the news even once, you probably know why. And I'm not going to go into detail, and because I don't really want to get into the politics of it, this is not what this channel and this video is about. But yeah, when you're in Israel, there is going to be a lot of security around. Obviously, it's just an inconvenience. It's not going to stop you from doing anything. It's just annoying when you have to go through security checkpoints and stuff a lot of the time. Like the Western Wall, like it took me like 5 minutes to find the exit because it's just loads of like security checkpoints all over the place at the Western Wall. Um, I would say this is more the case in Jerusalem than Tel Aviv. There's more security in Jerusalem. But in Tel Aviv, you still see like soldiers around and stuff, like I said in my previous video. But they're more just people who are on duty, like who are just walking around. They're not really there for any particular reason. They're just people who are soldiers who are walking around. Whereas in Jerusalem, it's very much more like, they're there for security reasons. Again, also at the airport, they might be a bit aggressive with their security, which they were. That I had to pretty much empty my entire bag and then put everything back in. But it's just how it is. It's the region. It's not a very stable one. So if you're traveling to the Middle East, you just got to expect there's going to be security, and Israel is no different. Anyway, that is my 10 tips. I hope they're useful. If you have any other tips, please leave them in the description for other people to have a look at, and for me to have a look at. It's very interesting to see what you guys observed and think is a good tip. And also, just please like and subscribe, and follow me on my social media links below. And I'll see you in the next video.